How we doing, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome into another edition Final Whistle. I want to thank everyone that's given the support for the hoodies and gear that we have been repping. I got two of my reoccurring guests, Anthony Pacifico, who was on the mental health and sports episode, as well as Joseph Papandrea. He was on my Jersey edition of our YouTube debut episode earlier this year. You two, thanks for coming on and joining me for our wild card preview edition of Final Whistle. Anthony, how we doing?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back. We had a great time last time. Thank you for asking us to do this again. I'm ready to get into it.
Absolutely. Papandrea, how we doing?
Good as always, Blaine. Thanks for having me back on again. I know I was one of your first guests, so I beat Anthony to being one of your guests first. So I guess you like me more. And you asked me to come back on, so I appreciate it.
Of course. Again, that'll be debatable. That will be an off-screen argument that we can have. But let's dive right in. Of course, this is wild card weekend of the NFL season, as well as the college football national championship will be taking place on Monday. We're going to be diving into every game and giving our ideas as well as picks for these games. So let's start off with the first game on tap. We have the Buffalo Bills versus the Indianapolis Colts taking place on Saturday. Buffalo at the moment is a 6.5-point favorite. Bills finished with a 13-3 record, winning the AFC East and finishing with the 2 seed, as well as the Indianapolis Colts being that last wild card team to get in with an 11-5 record. Just some injury updates. Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs are both questionable. The real indicator for Buffalo this year is that we've won the division, but we're not done. Their whole goal is to win the Super Bowl, yet they're 0-2 under Sean McDermott in the playoffs, and they have not won a playoff game since 1995 when they played the Miami Dolphins. And there is going to be fans in attendance, which is going to be a unique opportunity. And then for the Buffalo Bills fan base, for that Bills Mafia, and then transitioning for the Colts side, Phillip Rivers, this is easily probably his best chance and maybe his last chance to take a team to the Super Bowl under head coach Frank Reich, who has taken the Colts to the playoffs 2 out of his 3 seasons. Anthony, let's start off with you. What do you think is going to happen in this matchup?
So if you're Buffalo, you definitely want this to be a shootout. You want your defense to stack the box. You want to stop Jonathan Taylor. Because I think the Colts, in a way, are one-dimensional that way. You know, Indianapolis is playing as well as Phillip Rivers is playing. I love Phillip Rivers. You guys all know that. But he's also 5-6 in the postseason. And like you said, it's his last shot. And, you know, those 11 games that he previously played were probably better seasons than that he's having. I really like Buffalo to take this one. I think it's going to be it's going to end up being Buffalo's way. It's going to be a shootout. And I actually think Sean McDermott has full trust in Josh Allen to get this done. I think Diggs is a must play. I don't care if he's playing at 70%, 80%. He will be on that field for them.
Paps, what do you think?
So I'm going to go with, like what Ant said, I'm strictly Buffalo on this one. However, if the Colts can run the ball, I think it's going to be a much closer game than the 6.5 line that it opened up as. But I think if Jonathan Taylor could run the ball and the Bills can't stop that, it'll be a much closer game, but Bills do come out on top. But I'd see it being maybe like a 3-point game, if anything, but Bills get out with the win.
Yeah, so I think we're all on the same idea here that we think Buffalo is going to come out on top. I think Dable, the offensive coordinator, if he's not a head coach next season, I mean, the Buffalo might be in heaven for the next like 5 to 10 years. But Josh Allen has been an absolute superstar this year. And I think he put himself in that MVP conversation, and he's also put himself in an opportunity that he is the best quarterback coming out of that class. That included Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson. He's put himself as the front runner at the moment, which is really unique to see. For me, this is a tough decision for how I wanted to go here, because these are my 2 teams that I actually thought were going to give the Kansas City Chiefs the most trouble. And I think this is actually a really bad matchup for Indianapolis, especially with how often Josh Allen is lethal as a runner and a thrower. I do like the Buffalo Bills winning, but I think the Colts will be able to keep it close. But I think Phillip Rivers will make that mistake that he avoided all year. He'll make that late interception, and I do like Indianapolis covering that spread. So I think we're all in agreement. We have Buffalo, but we think the Colts are going to keep it close. So that's how we see the first matchup going. And we're not surprised if Buffalo is in the AFC title game or if not in the Super Bowl. So secondly, let's move into the first NFC wildcard matchup that will be taking place next. We have the Rams versus the Seahawks. This is the third time they'll be playing this season, the second time in 3 weeks. If you don't remember the last matchup, Jared Goff injured his thumb. He had to have surgery on it. It is uncertain whether he's going to be playing quarterback or if it's going to be John Wolford. Sean McVay has kept that very much under wraps. It's going to be more of a game time decision of who he throws out there on that first series of who's going to be playing quarterback for them. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think one thing that's going to be is unique though. The Seattle Seahawks defenses came around. In the last 8 weeks, they're only averaging 16 points per game on defense. So I think the Seattle Seahawks are definitely have the opportunity here to take advantage with Russell Wilson, especially with the unknown at quarterback. And if Wolford plays, that defense that Seattle with Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner will eat them up. The spread right now is -3 Seattle. Paps, let's start with you. What do you see in this Rams-Seahawks matchup?
Yeah, so I love Seattle in this one, especially if Goff isn't playing. Just let Russ cook. They said it in the beginning of the year. He's had his struggles, and I think he's out to prove himself, especially in the playoffs. I think Seahawks are going to be my sleeper, coming into the playoffs, but love them going against the Rams. And I believe what that spread is 4.5. I see them covering
3 right now.
I even see them. Yeah, definitely covering that. Even if Goff plays, I think it's a Seattle blowout. Russ is going to find Lockett. He's going to find Metcalf. He's going to find his go-to guy in that game. Blowout by Seattle. And Russ is going to cook.
Anthony, what we got?
So, Pap said it best, and Russell Wilson's the leader on that team. You can't dispute that. My guy DK Metcalf's over there. He's a baller. He's gonna eat. He's gonna feast on that team. I know Rams probably on paper are the better team, but if Jared Goff's not taking those first team reps in practice, he hasn't been. He's been injured with the thumb. You're kind of almost as strong as your quarterback. And if Jared Goff is at 50%, I really don't think it's a go for me. And I think Seattle, I think Pete Carroll makes good adjustments. Although the Rams have, of course, been to the Super Bowl recently, I think Seattle is a more experienced team. And I think experience is going to get you further.
Yeah, I think we're 2 for 2 to start. We're all on the same page here. I think the Rams are going to really struggle offensively. Their defense is nothing short of elite, and that is an area where you can keep it close. But with the spread at 3 right now, I think Seattle will probably win by 6 points. It's going to be a defensive struggle, I believe. Jalen Ramsey is going to probably cover DK Metcalf all over the field, and I think Tyler Lockett's actually going to be the X factor, especially with the Rams really don't have a number 2 corner that could really shadow him, and he plays the slot and on the outside. So I think he'll be a focal point for Russell Wilson. And he's going to be a man on the mission this Saturday, especially trying to prove a point that, hey, I have struggled this last half of the season, but the first half of the season, I was the MVP, and I'm going to show you the MVP. So don't bet on Russell Wilson to have a huge day. So I agree with that. I like the Seahawks to win, and I like the Seahawks to cover that 3 as well.
And I think as long as he doesn't turn over the ball, he does have 13 interceptions on the year. But let's not forget, he also threw for 40 touchdowns this year. But if he can not turn over the ball, you said 7 points, at least 6-7 points in this game. I think I'm going by 14 at least, especially if the Rams don't.
Blaine.
Wow, blowout. Okay, go Ant.
I think I'm gonna just piggyback on what Pap said, and I think it's to say with some of these quarterbacks, as long as Russell Wilson does not play hero ball, conventional, smart football, put it where it needs to be, trust the play calling, right? He will come out with a win.
Yeah, I agree. And I think hero ball's been an issue for quarterbacks all throughout this COVID-related season. I know Anthony and Paps can relate to that as for their teams, but we won't get into that because they'll get too upset and they will jump off this podcast. But so let's transition. And I don't think they know it's my team, the Washington football team, baby. They are hosting a home game at a record of 7-9. They're the 5th team to finish with a record under 500, and they will be still winning their division or being in the playoffs. They're playing Tom Brady, the GOAT himself. That spread right now is -8.5 versus Tampa Bay, excuse me. And I mean, if history repeats itself, right now, Washington is actually a good bet because the last 2 teams that have finished under 500, Seattle, the Beastquake run beat New Orleans in Seattle, as well as Carolina. Riverboat Ron, he was the coach of that team. They ended up beating the Cardinals that year. And Riverboat Ron's the coach of the Washington football team now. I mean, I'm not throwing it in that they're going to, maybe I'm trying to throw it in that they're going to pull off a victory. But again, this is going to be a defensive matchup. Tampa Bay is 6th in defense. Washington is 2nd. I think it's going to be a low-scoring matchup. Anthony, let's start with you. I know you've already given me the look of disagreement. So
I'm not taking away from Washington's season, right? You know, as a fan of the NFC East, teams of the NFC East, of course. You know, I love this comeback story for Alex Smith. I think it's great, but I think this is where it ends, right? Like I look at it two ways. As a Tom Brady fan, as a Tom Brady fantasy owner, and as a realistic football fan. You know a few things about this man. He is the GOAT. When you poke the bear, who is the GOAT? And I'm talking to you, Chase Young. I understand you are a baller in this league. You're an absolute dog. But do not wake this man up because Tom will do bad things to you. And I know you said about the Beastquake and all that, but this man, Tom, is on a mission. I don't care. I think he's been every time he's been in the playoffs, he's never been a wild card. Of course, that changed with the formatting and whatnot, and that's essentially why he's playing this week, or one of the reasons why. But Tom Brady is going to do bad things to Washington. I don't even know if I want to watch it. It might be 14 points, could be 17. I'm pretty sure Mike Evans came back to practice. Bruce Arians is an experienced coach. We all know that from his years with the Steelers and Arizona, right? And Tom Brady has been to the playoffs more times than Washington has in the last X amount of years, right? Like Tom is Tom. And that's it. I'm leaving it to. He's got the three-headed monster there with Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. That's it. Who's playing? Does Washington still not have a secondary? No, they have a nice front seven. Who's in their secondary?
Kendall Fuller and Ronald Darby.
And you said the spread's 8.5?
8.5.
Yeah, 2 scores maybe.
Paps, what do you got?
I think Ant, we could agree here. This is where we really gang up on Blaine. But I'd like to, piggyback off what you said with Alex Smith. That story and his comeback is just unbelievable. But like you said, I think this is where the road ends for him and a quick exit for him as well. But he definitely proved himself all throughout the season. I think he did what he had to do in terms of winning games and showing that, he is the comeback player of the year. But again, he's going up against Tom Brady, and Tom Brady in the playoffs. As long as, Washington can't put pressure on him, I think Tom Brady easily throws for 4, maybe 5 touchdowns. He's got a healthy wide receiving core in Antonio Brown, Godwin, Mike Evans, Gronk. It's just unbelievable how many weapons they do have. And, like Blaine said, the secondary isn't going to be able to, cover that field, downfield, middle of the field. They're going to struggle unless they get Chase Young in on Tom Brady to hit him a few times and rattle him a bit. This game is easily going to be over the 8.5 point spread. And I see a blowout by Tampa
Who's
Bay.
Tom's backup?
Blaine Gabbert.
He might be in by the third quarter.
Oh, don't say that. You know what? I'm going to be a realistic fan. I'm taking Tampa Bay to win, but Washington will cover the spread, all right? They're going to cover.
Wrong.
I mean, all right. No, but I'm going to give you some numbers. All right, we're second in defense, right? We are the top passing defense in the league. And for me personally, that's kind of remarkable because Anthony would know who Ronald Darby is, and I despise Ronald Darby. I really do. but I'm just going to be realistic here. Let's be real. Every time Tom Brady has lost, it's by a team that has a front four that can get to the quarterback. The Giants, those 2 out of those 3 Super Bowl losses that Tom has, that was because they had a lethal front four. We have a lethal front four. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Ryan Kerrigan. I can keep going. But we have 5 first-rounders on that front line. We're going to get pressure. We're going to push Tom off his spot. It's going to be critical of D tackles because Tom loves to step up in the pocket. I'm not saying we're going to win, but I am going to say we're going to give ourselves a chance to win, and we're going to cover this spread. And if I'm taking Tampa Bay because I'm hopeful that we're going to be wrong on this one and that Washington will pull off a miracle. But I think realistically, this is Bruce Arians said it best, that he showed that the Chase Young clips in the locker room, and they're not going to be any slaps. The offensive line's is going to take that personally, and their offensive line is really good this season, being a top 5 on statistically. So it's going to be dependent on the lines. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I believe Tampa Bay will win, but I'm hopeful. I'm taking Washington on the 8.5. I think we'll probably lose by 7. I think we can cover 8.5. So that's going to be. So that's going to be our first disagreement. We're in agreement on who's going to win, but based on the spread, we're going to have to go elsewhere. So let's just recap what we've discussed so far. So for our Saturday selections, we have all 3 of us have the Bills winning, but we have the Colts covering. Then we have again in unanimous decision, Seahawks are going to win and cover the 3 points. And then lastly, we're Anthony and Paps think the Tampa Bay Washington game will be over by halftime, and it'll be a 2-score victory, probably potentially even more. And then I have Tampa Bay winning, but Washington will cover the spread. So what is going to be your biggest takeaway on Saturday? Paps, let's start with you. What game are you going to be more intrigued to watch out of those 3?
Definitely the Bills-Colts game. I think that's going to be one of the closer games. 2 good quarterbacks going at it. I think that one will be one of the harder ones to pick through as far as Buffalo -6.5. Colts could definitely cover that spread. Like I said, if they could run the ball well, if Jonathan Taylor could get going and the Bills can't stop him, I think definitely that'll be a much closer game. I think I said 3 points, and, I'm sticking with that. And then, the other 2 games are self-explanatory there. Seattle against the Rams, especially if Goff's not playing. Easy sweep for Seattle to move on. And then, of course, Tom Brady doing Tom Brady, and he's going to take your Washington football team down.
Anthony, what about you? You in agreement?
Well, Paps talked a little bit about this Buffalo-Indianapolis game, and of course, that's the game to watch, right? Like we all want to see who can see Kansas City as, the number 1 in the AFC. But I'm actually looking more towards this LA Rams Seattle game. Even if Jared Goff does not play, I want to see just how Seattle functions. All right, like we're going to talk about New Orleans in a little bit, but like the mission essentially is who's taking down Green Bay, and Seattle played very well, in spurts throughout the season, and I want to see if they can come back to life. And contend, because we want to see this competition. We want to see is Green Bay really what they are, or is Seattle going to stop being little brother and get back up there?
Yeah, and then I'm going to have to agree with Paps. I'm going to be watching the Bills-Colts game with a lot of interest, especially for me. Again, as I mentioned, I think those are the 2 teams that could take down Kansas City in the AFC. I think both of them have different recipes to beat Kansas City, but they both have the formula that can do it. So I will definitely be watching that game with a lot of interest. So let's transition now to the Sunday slate. The first game on tap is Baltimore versus Tennessee. Baltimore is favored -3 on the road, going to Nashville. As you know, Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards this season. Absolutely remarkable. He's not going to get the recognition in the MVP voting because that's more of a quarterback award, even though he should be a top 2 to top 3 candidate in my opinion. And Tennessee has Baltimore's number. They've beaten them the last 2 times, including last year's blowout where Derrick Henry ran for 195 yards and he had a jump pass touchdown. Just to rub it in a little bit, he's shown that he can throw the ball too. And then this past season, in the regular season, they had a matchup. Tennessee again won that one in overtime, 30-24. Henry had 133 on the ground. Transitioning to Baltimore, it lives and dies by Lamar Jackson. I think Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, has finally realized, hey, let's try and let Lamar Jackson just be the best player on the field instead of trying to make him a pocket passer. They've won 5 straight. Lamar Jackson is now the first quarterback to have back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons, which is really impressive. But it's all going to come down to his playoff record, where he is 0-2. Again, as you mentioned, they got blown out by Tennessee, as well as losing to the Los Angeles Chargers the year before that. So, Anthony, let's start with you. What do you see in this Baltimore-Tennessee matchup here?
Well, it all comes down to running the ball for both teams, right? We have Lamar Jackson. Again, I have my opinions about Lamar Jackson. You know, he's the offense, and I think that's an issue. Like you were talking about Greg Roman before. But let's look at Tennessee, right? Feed this man the ball. That's what it comes down to, right? Derrick Henry, 2,000-yard rusher. You're absolutely right. Should be in the MVP conversation, but won't. Feed him the ball. I don't care if he gets 30 carries, 40 carries, and then 50 touches overall, right? Like, you need to give this man the ball, because not only is that your strong suit, right? But it's going to open play action. And Mike Vrabel knows what he's doing. Ryan Tannehill plays very well off play action. And I think that's what I'm going to be looking for, right? Can Tennessee get their run game going early, put points on the board? If it becomes a closer game, can Ryan Tannehill kind of carry a little bit more? And, you know, he's got the receivers, he's got the talent there, and we saw those big plays. He can do it. And then in regards to Baltimore, just like we were talking about the matchup records, I think the road stops for Baltimore here. Haven't been the biggest fan of them all year. I think Lamar, and again, it goes to all these games, right? Like, your quarterback is your strong, you're as good as your quarterback. And Lamar Jackson's great with his legs. He's okay with the ball in his hands, but I don't think with that defense, I just don't think he can put the points up there that they need to run Tennessee off the field.
What you got, Paps?
So coming into this, you know, I think I was really high on the Ravens taking this game, but Tennessee's tough. And I'm going to piggyback what Ant said about Derrick Henry. If you feed him the ball all throughout the game and he's rushing, you know, even if he's getting 5-6 yards a carry, they're moving the ball up the field. And, you know, I don't think the Ravens front could stop that. And he's got weapons on the outside, Tannehill as well. And let's not forget that Tannehill also has the legs to, you know, run as well. So, no, it's just not Lamar who's going to be the only one running. And Tennessee is obviously going to be prepared for Lamar running the ball. But yeah, I wouldn't put Tennessee out of this one. They're a very strong team. Both teams 11-5. And I think a lot of people are doubting Tennessee in this one. So, you know, especially the Ravens being that home team and everyone's high up on them, you got to go against it. Tennessee is definitely going to take this one, even though this is a revenge game for the Ravens.
All right, so we have 2 Tennessee. So I'm going against the grain because I think Lamar Jackson will get it done. I really do. I think Lamar Jackson will get it done, and Baltimore will win this game. I actually think they might run. I think this is the game I wanted to watch. This is the game of the weekend, in my opinion. And for me, I'm taking Lamar Jackson, and I think he's not gonna run the ball as much as people think he is. I think they're gonna use J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Mark Ingram. They're gonna use the 3-headed monster at running back, especially Mark Ingram. They've rested him for this opportunity, especially the last 2 weeks when they haven't really played anybody. So I want to see, they're going to ground and pound. They're going to use Lamar more of a decoy, and then they're going to have him fresh in the second half when it's that time of the game, when it's time to pound the team down. And we know if Baltimore gets behind, it's going to get ugly because Baltimore is not a team that gets from behind. But I think Harbaugh knows that. He's going to take the ball if they win the toss, and they're going to take him right down the field because Baltimore's a team. If they're ahead, nobody can catch them. They're literally a yin and a yang team. If you're behind, they're not going to win, but if they're ahead, they will run you down till the game's over. So I believe in them. King Henry, he will have a monster game. This is going to be the game of the day. I think both of them are going to eat. I think Lamar's going to surprise some people as a thrower though tomorrow on Sunday. So I'm taking Baltimore. I think they're going to win too. So on the spread, I like them by like 4 to 7 points. I'm going to ride Baltimore. I think it's going to be the game of the
7
weekend.
points.
4 to 7 in between there. I can't be. They're going to cover the 3. All right.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
Hey, and I think he's going to be playing with house money. Because there was this whole statistic that came out. Peyton Manning hasn't won a playoff game until he turned 27. Lamar just turned 24 the other day this week. So
I just don't trust the ball in Lamar's hands when the game matters.
he's the best. If they get in the red zone, it won't matter because he's the best red zone quarterback in history based off of the years he's played.
I believe he has 0 turnovers in the red zone this year, if I'm correct.
Yeah, 0 INTs in the red zone. He's lethal. I'm telling you, he's going to surprise.
Just get him. I just want him to get them there. If he's not running the ball every 3 plays, if you're going to rely on J.K. Dobbins and whoever's in the back.
He doesn't have to get him there. He's just got to win the football game.
Right. Okay. All right. We'll see.
If Tennessee has the ball last down by 3, they're winning the game.
Because your Houston paid that price last week. All right.
No question. It's happened multiple times. Tennessee with the ball last, easy.
Hey,
walking out there with a win.
I'm telling you, it's going to come down to Justin Tucker, and that kid doesn't miss. So,
okay,
you just jinxed him. Mark my word.
Anyway, moving on. So now we're going to transition to the Bears versus the Saints. We're going to be the Bears 8-8. They got in because Arizona lost this past week to Los Angeles, the Rams. And it was very unfortunate. I thought I was riding the Cardinals last week, so that didn't help that Kyler got hurt on the first play. Anyway, but Mitchell Trubisky has started 9 games, and remarkably, he is 6-3 as the starter. So many people now believe that there's a little controversy there, and that he has the potential of being re-signed back into Chicago. That has been the rumors this week. For some reason, Matt Nagy is coming back, which makes no sense. He finally got rid of the play calling, and they finally figured out how to use Trubisky correctly. For New Orleans, they ran for over 2,200 yards this year. It's the most under a Sean Payton team with the 2-headed monster of Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is expected to return from testing positive for COVID for Sunday. Michael Thomas is going to be back. Drew Brees is going to have his top target back. Personally, for me, I think this one might be the ugliest matchup of the weekend, especially if Chicago's defense doesn't hold serve, because New Orleans' defense is a lot better than people actually expected them to be. So, Paps, let's start with you. New Orleans, Chicago. How's this one's going to turn out?
This one, Blaine, like you said, it's a really ugly game. I don't think Chicago belongs in the playoffs. They got lucky. They're 8-8 team. They have quarterback problems. They have one running back, Montgomery. I think the Saints are ready no matter what. The Saints have so many more weapons, like you had mentioned. Michael Thomas is going to be back. Kamara should be off COVID protocol, and he should be back. So, I love the Saints in this one, easily covering the spread. I think this is a blowout.
It's 9.5. So I think, and that's a high spread.
This one, especially if Kamara gets going, and we know Breeze could throw the ball. Sean Payton obviously going to use Taysom Hill in this game, whether it's running, throwing, catching. He does it all. We both know that. So many weapons in the Saints. But yeah, I don't think Chicago, even with Mac on the end, I don't think he'll even get to Drew Brees once in this game.
Ant, what do you think?
So we can have a 45-minute conversation another time about Mitch Trubisky and his time in Chicago. I would love to have that conversation be promoted somewhere, because you know how I feel about him. But as Pap was talking, I'm thinking to myself, what's the best way to clean up this mess? Do we get the Swiffer? Do we get the broom? Because that's exactly what this game is going to be. Does Chicago want to be beat by Alvin Kamara, 6 touchdowns, that kind of sort of deal? Do they want to get the slants from Michael Thomas? Or do they want Taysom Hill to run it in? Chicago has no business being in this game. Literally 0. What was the spread? It wasn't
9.5.
Right,
9.5.
If you thought
it'll probably be higher than that by kickoff.
2 scores. I think it'll be at least 2 scores. I see this being a run heavy. We know Chicago has a pretty good defense. I think actually Sean Payton's going to run the ball down their throats. Don't put the ball so much in Drew Brees' hands. Not that he can't handle it, just because he's still recovering from the injury. But we all know Mitch and the gang have no business being in the playoffs. They have no business even playing the Saints. I actually feel bad for the Saints that they have to suit up. And I really think Matt Nagy, Mitch, and Ryan Pace, they're all going to get back on their plane, and they're going to, after the time, there's nothing to this game. There's nothing. It's a blowout. It's a wash. It's just next week.
I think the bigger thing is that for this game, this is the game that's being broadcasted on Nickelodeon to bring in kids to try and want to watch football more. And this is probably the worst matchup to get.
There's also a game on Freeform. I saw that.
It's a very interesting conundrum what the NFL has done.
The NFL is going to have these poor children see bad things happen to these grown men. I'm so sorry that they're posting that on a children's network.
I can't. All right, I got to give you a real question though. Will Nick Foles play this game at any point?
It's not worth it because no matter who's in quarterback, they're going to get slaughtered. Even if Mitch Trubisky plays bad, keep Mitch in there. You're basically trying to evaluate your team you're basically using this game to evaluate your team for next year because you're not going to win. So see what Mitch is. He's on his contract year. I think Nick Foles is holding the board. No. Nick Foles is waving to somebody else in the stands. Maybe I don't know what he's doing.
I could really see, Nick Foles coming into this game, especially if it gets ugly.
Yeah, to kneel the ball.
What's that?
To kneel the ball at the end of the game, maybe.
If Mitchell Trubisky is going to turn over the ball at least twice or three times in the first half,
you'll see him at halftime.
You will see Nick Foles in the second half. But
I'm telling you, man, if he comes out with the dark tinted visor, it's over. It's a wrap for New Orleans.
You might see Jameis Winston. You're asking me about Nick Foles. I might see Jameis Winston on the field.
That's very true. But I'm going to agree with you too. I think this is going to be a rout. I know we have a couple Chicago Bears followers, so we apologize. We're not going to name names, but they know who they are.
Don't listen.
Yeah, don't listen to what we're saying.
Don't listen and don't watch.
No, skip this part of the segment for the next game. But New Orleans will blow them out. I'm sorry for all you childhood fans that are trying to get it back into football, and the NFL might lose a lot of viewership in this game. But so we're going to transition now to our final game on the NFL slate. Sunday Night Football. We have the Cleveland Browns with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a rematch from last week. Pittsburgh is favored -6. Last week's game, Cleveland won 24-22 for Cleveland to get into the playoffs in a must-win game because if they lost, Miami would have gotten in over them based off of tiebreakers. And I think the more intriguing thing is that Pittsburgh only lost by 2 without Big Ben, without TJ Watt, without Casey Hayward, 3 of their best players on their entire team, and they still barely survived to have a chance. They had a 2-point conversion to try and tie that game late. And as we know, Kevin Stefanski will not be coaching due to testing positive for COVID. They're actually going to be out with also a wide receiver, as well as several other coaches. The special teams coordinator, Mike Pfeiffer, is going to be the head coach. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this game gets handled. Cleveland is going to have a little bit of motivation though after Juju Smith-Schuster's little press conference where he said the Cleveland Browns are just the same team to me. They're a little bit basically saying that they're still washed up as a franchise. And as we know, Pittsburgh cannot run the ball. It's going to be down to Big Ben throwing it 55 times in the game, and they only had 1,300 yards on the season rushing, which is the worst in the NFL. And then Anthony, how do we expect this one to go? It's a little bit of a mixed bag of what we're going to see. I think the spread's a little awkward there of whether to go with Pittsburgh or Cleveland.
Well, first of all, I think Juju needs to watch his mouth. He needs to be worried about where he's playing next year, right? He needs to worry about the next game and then where he's playing next year. But I think you said it best, right? Like I've been rooting for Cleveland. I have my support for Baker, right? But again, with all the COVID protocols and everything that's going on, they're at a disadvantage because they can't push this game back, obviously. They can't move this around, right? They're already down receivers, they're down coaching. I think the facility has been closed every so often.
Yeah, they've been closed all week.
They're doing primarily walkthroughs. I think, unfortunately, they're the reason they're going to lose this game. It's just them not being able to practice, not be able to have their coaching there. You said they have somebody like down the line who's going to be their head coach for the game. I think the preparation is going to be off. I think Jarvis Landry said that he's going to be playing. I don't think that makes too much of a factor because the Steelers are playing phenomenal defense. And going back to the Steelers, yeah, they're playing inconsistent football. I think this is a week that Mike Tomlin's going to use to try to get it right, especially against a Browns defense, Browns offense, see better play calling to make a deeper playoff run. I don't know where it's going to go, but I think Big Ben gets this right. He has plenty of receivers to throw to. Doesn't even matter if the run game's okay. Listen, just watch out for Myles Garrett. You know he's a dog. That's what it comes down to. I'm taking the Steelers.
Paps, what do you have?
Definitely taking the Steelers in this one. You'd mentioned the spread is a little awkward in this one. It's up to -6 now after the fact that, all this COVID stuff had came out with their head coach. But I still like the original line -4 for the Steelers. I'm going to stick with that. I don't really like the 6. I think Cleveland will still keep up. Baker, very underrated this year in a way. So I think he can, still get the ball to who he's got to get it to. 2 running backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They'll both run the ball pretty well. I think it all comes down to how well Pittsburgh's defense shows up in this one, especially TJ Watt. If TJ Watt can get to Baker Mayfield and cause problems, I think Baker's going to get very frustrated, and then it can be a Pittsburgh blowout. But like Ant said, you got to get Big Ben throwing that ball at least, 30, 40, 50 times. And he's got weapons all over the field. It's just a matter of fact that they're going to do their slants. But I think Big Ben's got to take some big shots in this one, not just those slant routes, because Big Ben's going to turn over the ball. This game is going to be a lot closer, and it is possible that Cleveland can sneak out with a win. But I'm going to still stick with Pittsburgh, and I'm going to go with the -4 line on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. I just think with Stefanski out, it's going to be too much of a tall task for the rest of the coaches to pick up the slack. I believe he'll probably have the whole first quarter scripted with plays, but I don't think by the second half you won't have the second half scripted by then, because you don't know how the outcome's going to be laid out. And I think they'll probably be behind, and that's what's going to lead to Baker throwing the ball too much. And the way they play is that you ride Kareem Hunt and you ride Nick Chubb, and then you use the play action really well. You get Baker out on the edges, you let him throw, you give him the run option as well, because I think last week he showcased, especially when he needed to, he used his legs. But I do like the Steelers. This is a statement game for them, especially how they have limped in to the postseason after being 11-0, going 1-4 down the stretch. It's going to be a real deal breaker for them, whether or not they're going to try and be competitive or not. And I think they're going to show up. I don't think the run game will show up because it hasn't all year, but I think they're going to figure out a way to use this short passing game, more of like an air raid kind of style, just dink and dunk down the field. Deontay Johnson has finally eliminated those drops in the last 3 or 4 weeks. That has been the issue with the Pittsburgh receivers. And I think Eric Ebron's going to be a real matchup problem. The tight end. I think that's going to be the difference. So I think Pittsburgh's actually going to cover the 6. I actually like them by 7.
So Blaine, going back to a little bit, just an additional now that I'm thinking about it. Paps mentioned TJ Watt, right? And Batonio, the Browns stud guard, will not be playing as far as I know. So I could see this getting a little dangerous for Baker.
Yeah, and then just letting Minkah Fitzpatrick be the rover and just eye Baker Mayfield down. Because if you just let him be a cover 1 rover, it gets really ugly for other teams, because he's all over the field when you least expect it. So I think he's going to be the real deal breaker defensively. And he'll probably be shading towards Landry. But I think especially with one of the Cleveland main receivers out, he's going to be able to be a little bit more free there as well. So let's just recap what we have. We have Paps and Anthony going with Tennessee. I have Baltimore in that first Sunday matchup. Then we're all in unison here with the Saints blowout. And then I think I took Steelers -6. Paps took it at an alternate spread, which was when it opened at was 4 before COVID. Anthony, are you taking the 6 or the 4 for Pittsburgh? Or are you taking Cleveland on the spread? It's a little coin flip, huh? It's a weird number. They're weird numbers. I know you have Pittsburgh winning.
I definitely have Pittsburgh winning. I'm gonna go with Paps actually, only because I'm thinking about the defenses, who's not playing, who's been playing like crap, all those things, right?
Yeah,
the Steelers kind of just limping in, so I'm gonna take the original.
Take the 4, okay.
Yeah.
And then so out of those 3 Sunday games, again, Anthony, we'll start with you. Which one are you going to be looking forward to out of the 3? I think it's going to be pretty obvious which one. I'm leaning Tennessee, Baltimore.
I'm leaning Tennessee, Baltimore too, because it's a competitive game. I just Derrick Henry just having a phenomenal year. I don't think this is the end for him personally. I think he's just going to run his way through whatever team in the playoffs. I think when you look at the rest of the teams they're going to have to play, a lot of them don't have great run defenses. Derrick Henry can really take over this playoffs. So that's the game to watch. However, as crazy as this sounds, will I be watching this game? Probably not. But it is in a weird way a game to watch. New Orleans Bears. Why? Because the Saints themselves have been a little bit flip-flopping their identity. They're still trying to kind of figure themselves out. And again, I love Green Bay and Matt LaFleur as the front runners in the NFC, but I really want to see who can compete against them. I really want to see how the NFC turns out. And I think the Saints can kind of figure that out in this game.
And then, Pat, so which one are you looking at?
Definitely, like you said, it's pretty obvious that Titans-Ravens game, AFC is so competitive this year. That's definitely a game to watch. It'll probably be one of the closest back and forth game. It'll definitely be one of those shootout games to watch. Who it comes down to who has the ball last and who could get it done, fewest mistakes, but also Derrick Henry running the ball. And, we're going to see him run the ball at least 20 times in this contest. But like Ant said, the Saints-Bears game is another one to watch out for, because who's going to compete with Green Bay coming out of the NFC? NFC is a little more shaky. You don't really know who's going to come out of it. Is Green Bay going to walk right to the Super Bowl, or is there going to be a team that's going to cause them the problem, whether it is the Seahawks if they get past the Rams, or the Saints if they get past the Bears? But I'm going to stick with the Tennessee Ravens game. That'll be a pretty good one to watch.
Yeah, and then for me, as I mentioned, I agree with the Baltimore-Tennessee game. I think it's easily the game of the weekend on the slate, of the whole wild card slate, in my opinion. And then I think for Browns-Steelers, is just going to see how are the Browns going to respond. You did the hard part. You ended the drought. Are you now going to lay an egg in the playoffs, or are you going to try and show up and try and make an impact and actually show that you're a legit contender or a dark horse to contend against Kansas City potentially in the AFC? So I just want to see, Cleveland, what are you going to be made of? You did the hard part. You ended the drought. Now, are you guys just going to be a one and done team, or are you guys going to showcase the ability? Hey, we're going to be contenders for not just the next couple of years, but this year too. So I think that'll be intriguing. As we wrapped up, that's going to be our look at the NFL wild card. But there is still one more game that we're going to discuss. As of right now, the game is still happening, which is the national championship, which will be taking place on Monday. That is Ohio State versus Alabama. Alabama right now is favored -8, but there is the potential of this game being postponed. There have been rumors. Ohio State is having issues with COVID right now and within their team. So it's going to be unique whether or not the game will be pushed back a week. That is still up for possibility. But as of now, the game is on. Unique opponents. We thought this was going to be an Alabama-Clemson game. Ohio State ended up blowing out Clemson and Trevor Lawrence, which was kind of unique. Justin Fields was a man on a mission last week, playing absolutely. We didn't even think he was going to come back in the game, and he had 6 touchdowns to 6 incompletions. Like, he played out of his mind last week. And for me personally, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not can anybody give Alabama a game. Can anybody do it? We saw it once this year, and that was against Lane Kiffin because Lane Kiffin worked for Saban, so he understood how to play against him. That was literally it. And this is going to be a huge factor. Jalen Waddle, who we all thought was going to be out for the year, is a game time decision now for Monday night. So, and we don't know how severe the Justin Fields injury is. If he takes one hit, is he going to be able to continue, etc.? So, I mean, right now it's 8, but this game could get ugly, especially if Waddle plays. Paps, I'm going to start with you for the national championship. What do you see here, and give me a prediction?
This game, Alabama just being Alabama, they're back in the number 1 spot. Saban bringing the team back to number 1, pushing Clemson to that number 2. Clemson clearly getting blown out by Ohio State, and that was really a statement for Ohio State to get to this national championship. Only because that was a revenge game for them. Watching that game, they kept showing the team working out with the score from last year's game up on their screen while working out. And, Ohio State came in there and they really showed Clemson they belong in the college football playoffs. I don't dislike Ohio State in this game. I wouldn't count Justin Fields out. After that game, he definitely upped his draft stock for this year. You really don't know. Is he going to go before Trevor Lawrence? We don't know yet. But, you're shaking your head. I think it all depends on this game. If he could beat Alabama, is he the better quarterback? We'll see. That that's another podcast you'll have to have me and Ann on. We'll talk then when it gets to.
We'll talk draft.
Talk draft, but I wouldn't count Justin Fields out. Ohio State also has a really good run game with Sermon in the backfield. He's had a monster year, but Alabama's just. With Nick Saban's coaching, I think it's a no-brainer that Nick Saban's fully prepared for whatever Ohio State throws at them, whether it's Justin Fields throwing the ball or Ohio State running the ball. And especially the way Mac Jones has played this year, if he's going to keep that up. And they also now have a Heisman Trophy winner. So they're really high on their horses. And, Alabama's been taking a beating a few years from Clemson. So I think Nick Saban wants to get right back on top. This one could get ugly, and I see a blowout by Alabama.
Anthony, is there any chance for Ohio State?
Well, see, Paps tried not to say it, but I'm going to say it. I'm counting Ohio State out. They're done. Goodbye. Go home. If the game gets moved, you're just helping Nick Saban prepare even more.
And Jalen Waddle definitely play next week.
You're getting Waddle even healthier. You're getting the whole team healthier, right? You have the Heisman Trophy. Waddle would have been in that conversation too. Najee Harris is running the ball like a madman. And Mac Jones is playing phenomenal football. We talked about this a little bit, right? I love me some Mac Jones. And I think this is a quarterback that Nick Saban can work really thoroughly with. He was in the running as well. But flipping over to Ohio State, right? You talked a little bit about the draft, but I think that's important, right? Like Justin Fields is showcasing himself. This is more than just a championship game. He's going to the draft. He already knows. He's hearing in social media, people chirping in his ear that he's going to be second fiddle in the draft to Trevor Lawrence. He's going to play hero ball. I think Justin Fields is going to play hero ball because he has to also. I see him starting strong. But when he gets down big, he's going to have to play that hero ball. I don't think there's any way he comes out of this with a win. Paps, kind of going off of what you said, he will be at least his second pick in the draft anyway.
And then for me, I'm going to have to agree. I see this getting ugly. I really do. It could, if Waddle plays, this spread will easily be 14 by kickoff, without a doubt. If it's at 8 now, and if they say Waddle plays, it'll jump drastically by at least. Go ahead.
Something that people aren't talking about enough, although he will be with a new team shortly. Steve Sarkisian, the offensive coordinator, for
Alabama. Game is the Alabama guy,
right? But he has done some awesome things, not only in pros but in college. Like he will be at his best, you want to leave Nick Saban's administration and organization like on a good note, right?
Always.
You never know what can happen. Steve Sarkisian's gonna coach his heart out. He's gonna be making the right play calls like to a T. And I just wanted to add that to that because I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the unsung things is that people are not going to understand is cornerback Patrick Surtain for Alabama. Notre Dame did not throw his way the entire game. That's how, and Brian Kelly said it in his presser after. We were not even going to try and touch Patrick Surtain because he's the best cornerback in college football, and it's not even close. And he'll shadow Chris Olave all over that field on Monday night. So it's going to be real interesting if Justin Fields has a little bit of confidence in himself to attack Patrick Surtain, because if he does, it might get even worse than actually.
It will not end well. That will not end well.
No, it won't. And Patrick Surtain's easily a top 5 pick too. That's going to be coming into the draft. So I think it's going to be interesting. And if we haven't even met like Harris, Mac Jones just won the Davey O'Brien Award last night. Najee Harris just won the Walter Payton Award last night as the best running back. Like Devontae Smith won the Heisman. He also won the best player in college football. Like the list goes on. And this is like the first team to have three of the top 5 in the Heisman voting. Like that's just scary. And they would have probably had 4 out of the top 5 with Waddle on the team if he plays. And it's just going to be, it'll be a mismatch. Saban will have the guys ready to showcase their ability on full display, especially when he knows a lot of them will be gone after this game. They're going to want to leave on a good note. Alabama, big. I don't think, at least it might be Notre Dame lost by 17, but that was because they scored a garbage time touchdown late. So 21, 3 touchdowns. Is that what you're throwing at? 3 touchdowns? I agree.
I'm telling you, Justin Fields, man, great quarterback. He's going to be a great pro.
I don't know if he'll finish the game. I really don't.
I think he's going to crumble I don't know. He's going to crumble.
I don't know if he'll finish the game. But in other news, that's it for so we just went unanimous Alabama blowout there. That was our playoff wildcard edition / national championship edition of Final Whistle. Anthony and Joseph, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Love having you guys on the pod. Appreciate you taking the time. We will definitely do it again soon.
Of course, can't wait.
Definitely. Thanks for having us on again, Blaine.
Of course. Well, enjoy your weekend, everybody. That was our Friday edition of Final Whistle. Look out for more content and everything everywhere. Yep, throw it up, boys. I'm speaking to vendors, everybody. We're going to have more Final Whistle gear coming out soon. Watch out for it. Have a great day.